resistance training. And again, we're going to actually begin our unit on resistance training when we meet in the fitness room on Tuesday next week. All right, so let's talk about some of the benefits. One of the most important benefit of doing resistance training, especially weight-bearing training, is that you can help increase your bone density now so that you're less prone to fractures as you get older. Some of you folks, if you were doing a family tree, if you learned that osteoporosis fractures tend to run in the family, one of the things that you can do a lot of right now is start doing some of that weight-bearing training, whether it's something where you're bounding a lot, running, etc., or lifting weights, so that as you get older, those bones become more dense and you're less prone to fractures. People who swim, and I'm not going to be critical of swimming because I think overall it's one of the best workouts for the body. The downside to using swimming as your sole form of exercise is because it's not weight bearing. People that do lots and lots and lots of swimming and very little else sometimes have shown a history of being more vulnerable to fractures. When astronauts, now this is a really hypothetical example, but it's very realistic. When they come back from space, when they've been in a zero gravity environment for a lengthy period of time, they have to go through a gradual progression where they redevelop the, quote, bone density. If you've been in a zero gravity environment for 6 months on one of these extended space missions, and then all of a sudden came back and tried to engage in vigorous activity, those folks are very vulnerable to fractures. So bone density is one of the big reasons you really need to lift the weights or do some gravity-related resistance once in a while. Another thing is getting a more efficient metabolism. This is one of the frustrating things about trying to lose weight once you've got heavy. Think about this. What is fat? It's stored energy. What you don't burn off that you take in gets stored underneath the skin as fat. The folks in this class that have really, really low percentages of body fat can get away with eating lots of food because at rest or during activity, muscles actually require energy. Fat is just stored energy. So it's a snowballing thing. The heavier you become or the more fat you accumulate, the less percentage of muscle you have, the less efficient your metabolism becomes. Whereas, the flip side of that, the people who are already fairly muscular, they can get away with eating more because the bodies are more efficient not only during activity, but at rest. All right, risk of injury. Go back to the PRICES acronym. If I take care or if I build up some strength in the forearms, the biceps, and the triceps, what joint structure does that take a lot of strain off of? The elbow. By the same token, if I work on the quads, the hams, and the calves, if I get them nice and strong, that takes wear and tear off of what? Yeah, the knees. Alrighty? So the more strength you build in the muscles surrounding a joint, the less strain you put on joints. Think about this. When you are forced, whether it's through activity, daily living, etc., to do something that's extremely strenuous for long periods of time, you're going to feel that stiffness in the joints and the back, etc. Whereas if you've already got a pretty good amount of strength, you're going to be less sore in the joints. As far as building stamina, this is relatively common sense, but this is also something that's going to affect daily living skills. How many of you folks have ever worked as a waiter or waitress in a restaurant? Handful, not a lot, but some of you folks have done that. And if you're carrying large plates and you're having to do this for long shifts, if you've got good muscular endurance, then that'll make it so that you don't have to buckle over to try to go ahead and maintain balance so as not to drop. And I think I gave the example before about how women, if they are holding babies and the muscle endurance is adapting as the child starts to grow, that's why you'll often see women who can hold kids 3 and 4 years old for long periods of time because the muscles have adapted the endurance and strength as they've gone along. All right, chronic conditions. Those of you that have learned that you are more vulnerable to arthritis, osteoporosis, if you can start doing some training now, it could either delay, if not almost completely offset, certain potential chronic conditions. Now there are certain muscular afflictions which once you develop, you might not be able to escape, but at least you can slow it down. Things like muscular dystrophy, ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or Lou Gehrig's disease. Again, your strength training isn't going to stop them once they stop, but they can at least make the quality of your life a little bit better. All righty. As far as sharpening your focus, if you've got a more efficient internal system through better musculature, that's going to aid with the circulation, and your brain's a big blood hog, and therefore you're going to get better circulation of the brain. And appearance. Now this affects probably more of the, quote, dimensions of wellness as opposed to just the physical. If you have a better appearance, think of the different dimensions we discussed before. Let's talk about emotional, better self-esteem, social, makes you more attractive to different people. How about financial? Think about this. I'm an employer, and I'm basically interviewing two comparably qualified people. It's not any accident that more often than not, the person who has a, quote, healthier appearance is the person more likely to get the job, especially if I'm hiring someone for something like sales, where the person's appearance might represent my company. So there are a lot of, quote, dimensions of wellness other than just the physical that can be drastically affected by your appearance. All right, now we're going to finish off. Go ahead and start a new One Limb Power.